Hi, I'm Vanessa Chelvan and welcome to The Motherload. This is a space for honest conversations about the juggle, the 9 to 5, the 5 to 9 and everything in between. Real talk about the mess and the magic of being a working mum. When our mums had questions, they called their mum or neighbours or they just figured it out. Today we have TikToks, Instagram Reels, Reddit threads constantly telling us how we can optimize mothering and how we're doing everything wrong. So today we're asking, is social media actually helping us be better mothers, or is it making us more anxious ones? With me today is Huda Rasid, a mother of 2 and very soon 3. She is founder of the Mum Collective Singapore, a community that brings mothers together through mum circles held every few months. Huda, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me today.
And my next guest is someone many may know from her work in public service. Rahayu Mahzam is Minister of State, Ministry of Digital Development and Information and Ministry of Health. But today we're speaking to her in her other capacity, Mum. Rahayu, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me too, Vanessa. And nice to meet you, Huda.
Welcome. So I think most of us will agree, right, that social media has been genuinely useful for parenting, finding your tribe, getting advice at 2 a.m. when you're desperate, and discovering communities that you never would have found otherwise. But there's another side to all this, right? At some point, these helpful tips become overwhelming, and just that sheer volume of information means you can go way down a rabbit hole. Milk brands, milestone tracking, sleep schedules, pumping output. Like I see you smiling. There's speech development. There's so many things. When does all this stop feeling like support and start feeling like pressure?
I think it's very individual. It really depends on your capacity at that point in time, your state of mind, what you're actually going through. If you're feeling supported as a mom, I think you'd be able to handle the influx of information better. But if you're heavily sleep deprived, you are already very anxious, I think information gets overloaded very, very quickly, and then it becomes unhelpful. State of mind, basically. I think as with anything, if you're entering an important meeting frazzled versus if you're entering an important meeting calm and steady. So
it's a good analogy.
It's similar.
Rahayu?
I personally feel that motherhood and pregnancy is underrated, and as it is as an experience itself, it's already very challenging, very difficult. So if you go into a space and you come in with the hope of you're seeking out certain things, and if you go to the right sort of circles, then you end up getting the support you need, then that's fine and good. But if you end up just maybe comparing yourself, and you are looking at things in a certain frame where you're already feeling very small, and then that just exacerbates sort of the situation, then you will kind of come up with some negative outcomes. So I think it really is a function of really, like what Huda says, your state of mind, and I think that control that you bring into the space. But having said that, it's easy to say but not easy to experience or do, because we can never control how we are at any juncture at some point in time, right? So I think the reality is that we've got to we've got to learn to forgive ourselves and the mothers in the space, because it in itself is hard. I just feel that also because social media, there are certain features of it that kind of lends to it being a bit more of, if you don't know it well and don't use it well, say algorithms will kind of steer you a certain direction, and or if you kind of like go to the wrong spaces, or don't think about what you're actually asking, then you're steered to a certain direction. So I think it's really about being aware at all times, but it's also not easy to do.
I mean, the answer is it depends, right?
Yes.
And I guess people, most moms are not really aware. They're going to be like, right, okay, let's look inside. How are we feeling today before I start scrolling?
That's right.
You're just like, I need a break from this mess, and then you start going.
That's
so I think that awareness maybe is something that might help.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their own different triggers as well. So what you see may trigger a different reaction for me compared to if she sees it. It may mean nothing to her. And at the same time, I feel that as much as social media has its own features, like you mentioned, it's also not as passive as we make it out to be. Like, we do have agency in it. Yeah, we can
Control
decide.
that algorithm.
To a certain extent, I think we can.
Yeah. While prepping for this episode, we found a study from King's College that said parents of young children who constantly turn to online advice say they face information overload, inconsistency of advice, this sense of not knowing who to trust, and they do exhibit more feelings of anxiety, inadequacy, depression. And, Rahayu, from your work in digital development, you see this from a different angle, right? Just the sheer scale of what's out there. And in terms of, we talked a bit about the algorithm. Does it reflect our anxieties back at us?
It sounds like chicken and egg, right? Because I think there already, as I said earlier, existential challenges as a parent. It didn't come with a manual, or even if it did, it's like different children are different and you are different. So there's never like kind of one answer to it. So it already is very difficult. And you are right, there is really way too much information. And I always say too much information is no information, because you end up like kind of clouding your mind and space. And so if we kind of don't take a step back and we go into that sea of information, we do end up kind of getting lost in that space sometimes, I feel. So that's why I think in the work that we do, at least, it's really about trying to make sure how we can organize useful information and channel them at the right point in time. Because if we put it out there and people are not seized with it, also will mean nothing to them. On the other hand, if it's just proliferated with so much, then it's just lost. We did a study recently and realized that almost like 37% of parents felt that they were not confident in navigating their children in this digital age, And so I think that speaks a lot to the experience that people are having. It is feeling that sense of overwhelming, don't know what to do.
Yeah.
When actually information is technically all out there, right?
I think you made a very interesting point about how parents don't really trust themselves. We tend to Google a lot.
Yep.
We Google a lot how to start solids, how to, do this and do that. There's a lot of expert advice on social media from strangers, right? One thing that may be the cause of that is how this abundance of expert advice on social media kind of erodes your natural intuition and instincts.
Yeah, I think there are many ways to look at it. One could be, I think in general, modern day parenthood, there is what I commonly hear is a lack of support. So it's typically dual income families, everybody's stretched, and there's a lot of outsourcing from sheer need. And when you outsource care, I think sometimes that also means that it kind of preys on your confidence as well, because you weren't there from, let's say, 9 to 7 p.m. Someone else was doing it, and so you feel like your intuition is not as honed, as sharpened. So that could be one angle potentially. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. I really thought that Huda's point was resonated a little with me, because I'm out a lot, almost an absent mother, and that mom guilt, it weighs on me quite a lot.
Yeah.
And then the fact that, so I've had this conversation with my husband at some point, and I was saying, I think my mom should do this and that, because my mom is the one who takes care of my son. And he said, well, you're not there. And so you've also got to give her some slack for having to deal with the situation then. And I guess in a way, it also then takes away my sort of control over that situation, and I feel that this kind of things have got to differ. So that's, I think, one possibility of that sort of like confidence. I also feel that now, because of so much information and so much choices in a way, I think in the past it's like there's that one milk brand or the two milk brand, and then go buy that, and then now you've got so many things, and then your head is just kind of limited. Yeah, you I think it's easier when you don't have a choice sometimes, right? Because
or
it's like,
three
I'll just
choices,
wear
you don't need
that
20.
to walk.
Yeah.
Now you have to have like, okay, this is the whole range, and then you're like, I've got to make a decision, and then that's on you now. And so I think that kind of weighs a little, and then you start to get a little bit.
Yeah, and do you
confused.
also feel like, as moms, there are a million decisions to make, right? And this decision paralysis is real, right? That which milk, which, I don't know, pacifier, if you use those, which brand of clothing. Some people are like, okay, anything as long as it fits.
Or like natural
I
garments
want
only.
natural bamboo tencel. There are a lot of little decisions throughout the day. You make decisions without even consciously thinking about it sometimes.
And some of this, is capitalized by the
Of course.
there's a whole commercial aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
People prey on these kind of emotions to kind of sell off some of certain products or
Best
whatever.
toys,
Best toys
best
and all
this,
that.
best
And then
that.
it
Exactly.
adds on to something, and we kind of lose ourselves, I suppose, in the midst of all that.
I think in terms of like expert advice you mentioned, it's also quite Singaporean of us to rely on experts, right? Like that's our choice of source as opposed to hearsay or something unreliable. So in that sense, maybe that's why there's like an over-reliance on experts on social media, because we are like, okay, they have the credentials, this is a certified PD or solids expert or whatever, so therefore they are reliable, and then there's over-reliance on that. And if we view external reliance and internal intuition as a ratio, if we therefore over-rely on experts, we miss out on our own intuition. So
Yeah, we kind of give away that
Yeah.
decision-making power lah. Speaking of preying on emotions, but also a nation of people who love to compare, right? Nobody wants to admit it's happening, but it's happening to all of us, especially as mums, right? We were talking just now about influencers or experts on social media, and when my boys were younger, they were about 2, they were not speaking yet beyond mama, dada. And it was through social media that I realized that something's not right here, because I used to follow lots of speech therapists, lots of occupational therapists, and I thought, oh, hang on, this other kid is the same age, and obviously I compared and I thought something's not quite right, let's go and get them assessed. And so they've been in speech therapy ever since they were maybe 2 plus 3, which is very early. Today they're fine, can't stop talking, So, yeah, I mean, has there been a moment where, what you saw online triggered kind of the same curiosity maybe, or made you second guess something that you were doing?
yeah, I think online the visual impact is more it does affect you more than you think. It's not just stories, but let's say photos or videos that you see. So for me, one thing that I can really recall very clearly was freezer stash, stash of breast milk. So I naturally just directly latched my daughter. So I didn't have any freezer stash, and I was also either in maternity or at a point in time I've decided that I wasn't going to work. So either way, there wasn't a real need to bulk up on stash on the milk, on the freezer stash, right? But I saw all these freezers full of milk, and it made me panic for absolutely no reason. There was no
it was
need.
the same.
Yeah, there was no need for me to have a stash. I wasn't going to back to work next week, and I really needed to ensure that my daughter had enough milk. There was really no need. But I felt that anxiety being preyed on me, and I started pumping. And I hated pumping. Pumping. I absolutely hated pumping. It feels so unnatural. Like, I mean, it could be because it was the wrong flange size or whatever, but it was just an uncomfortable experience for me. It made me stressed out. I could see the amount. It's like I'm looking at each drop, like, why am I doing this to myself? So then I started accumulating. And guess what? I didn't even use it in the end. So it went to the point where I was like, okay, let's just use it as a milk bath. So looking back, I'm like, my breastfeeding journey at the start, it was pretty rocky. But at that point in time, it was fine. There was no need for me to pump. But because of what I saw, I felt the pressure to do that just because other moms had had freezers full, or they were donating their milk even.
So my friend and I, she had a boy, I think a year after me. I was still breastfeeding at the time. And so I met her on the street one day, and she's like, I'm just going to donate my breast milk. And that sent me into such a spiral because I was like, donate? How much do you have? Yeah, how much do you have? And here I am pumping, and then latching, and then pumping to make sure there's enough.
Yeah.
And then, you see all these moms on social media going, oh, here is my output, not that much lah. But it's like more than, my two combined. So it even if, that your kids have enough, or you can supplement with formula, it kind of just, I guess because it's so, I don't even know what the word is.
Like it's attached to sort of your own self-worth.
Yeah.
You feel as though that's like what defines you as a mother and a woman.
And sometimes it gets reduced right down to milk volume.
Yeah,
which sounds very
90
absurd,
ml. Right? Have you breastfed your child? Like, how much? Is it enough? Do you supplement? Like, all these things start being markers of worth, right? Yeah.
It's easier said than done. I think in my own personal journey, I guess one thing for me, so at the beginning, because my son has special needs, and my first few weeks and months were a little bit traumatic for me because I was trying to kind of figure out what's going to happen to him, and I was watching a lot of videos and internationally what's happening, what's the situation like, and I would like cry every night, worried, sick about how his life is going to be, and how challenging it's going to be. And for a while in the early part of his life, I was constantly feeling a lot of guilt because I was seeing what was possible that I should be keeping up with their standards, and what I couldn't achieve because I was a working mom and I was not around. Kind of like a lot of mothers were very dedicated and committed about building some skills at the very beginning. And so it was trying everything in, trying to get him hearing aids and going for all the, therapies and all that. I was barely making the minimum, so it wasn't as
barely making the
because
minimum?
I think there was there were a lot of other options other mothers would put up. Like, okay, they would send for this extra therapy, that extra therapy and all that, and I was just going for whatever the doctor suggested, because that was all the time I had, And so I felt very guilty for the longest time. And then my son got really sick at some point in time, and we almost lost him. And that reset me, because when he was in hospital, and I was just like, you know what? All I want is for him to be alive and healthy, and I just want him to be happy. And then it kind of shed all those became unimportant.
Yep.
The other things about, because I was like kind of pulling it to the kind of ultimate conclusion. What did I want if I sent him for all this? Did I expect for him to be, being totally independent, totally being able, and I knew that there were certain things I had to accept about his situation. And it helped me rationalize and moderated sort of my own expectations.
It streamlined your priorities.
Yeah, it streamlined my priorities. But I don't know if now I've swung to the other extreme of like being like, never mind anything also, as long as he's happy and healthy. And I had, so I'm trying to recalibrate.
I mean, when things
yeah.
like this happen in those really tough moments, right, when it's literally life or death, really forces you
to
or
think,
it shows you, right, what is important for my child. I mean, given your public role now, what does your support network look like?
I have a lot of support from family. My parents live with me, and my, sort of my siblings and all that all around whenever there needs to be that support. My husband, of course, has to play a very large role in that arrangement. So I often have to try and make up for it when I can. So that I think is very important. And I think because I'm so busy, then maybe I don't have that much time to kind of also go and look at what everybody else is doing.
Which is a good thing.
I guess in a way, it's a very funny way of doing it. But I can't help but feel guilty sometimes about all that. But what I'm also seeing is that there's a lot of... So it's the two things, there are two parts to it, right? There's the sort of negative part where sometimes you get lost in this whole sea of information and you lose your confidence, you lose your ability to make your own judgments in it, and you're always second guessing yourself. But there is also that whole ecosystem of support that now is within your reach, because the doors have been opened to connect with mothers groups, to connect to resources online. So I'm still kind of ambivalent about it. I think I really, really do feel that there is we need to figure it out for ourselves individually, how to find that balance and how to be sensible, how to apply common sense, which I realize is not always so common. So I think it's about trying to navigate that space. So in the work that I do, we try to maybe, like I said earlier, to organize it a little bit, to maybe push forth in certain touch points. So for example, with, say, in, there is a certain milestone for the child where you have to go, say, to the doctor, right, to check your child at a certain juncture every time as they're growing. So we are trying to peg that information at that spaces so that at the very least, as a common denominator, parents will have some access to some
Is it the
knowledge.
ones via text messages?
Yes. So,
I actually found those helpful.
Yeah, so those are, because you're at the stage where you need that information, and then you want to know what's the most verified version, right? Because if you kind of leave it out there, people will have so many things and then they get very confused. So you give them this option of okay, this is the milestone your child is at, and these are some of the things that you may want to look at. So we try to sort of organize it a little bit, not taking away that autonomy and choices, but at least to channel them. So for example, even with the Screen Smart from the start, for example, digital parenting is this whole new phenomenon, right? Because our kids are digital natives, we know very little and they know more, and we're trying to figure out what's good, what's not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that two things, right? I think there's definitely, it's very useful for it to come from, government or an official source, because at least in Singapore, we know these sources can be trusted, right? But I also, as a mom, feel like there's huge value in, other moms setting things up for themselves, right? Like Huda started the mom circles. So when I found you, Huda, I thought, oh wow, this is so good. I'd like to be a part of it, right? Because it's so organic. It's kind of ground up. And Rahayu, you talked about the Screen Smart campaign, right? I mean, I've heard from a lot of my friends, right, that sometimes this can make them feel quite judged because we're constantly told that screen time is terrible for children. We know this, right? But it's you've had a long day at work, you're at the coffee shop trying to have dinner, and my kids are having a meltdown because they want rice, not noodles. Or why does that boy get to have chicken chop and fries? I also want fries. Can I have ice kacang after this? So as a quick solution, so many parents, right, pull out their phones and say, okay, watch. I don't want to sit here and feed you. I want to have my own dinner as well, right? So does that send me into bad parent territory?
I will be the first to confess that I let my son watch Coco Melon and whatever have you, Uma and Hana and Didi and friends, all sorts, to get him to calm down. So a couple of observations and my own personal take on this. First, I think different strokes for different folks. I think we've got to acknowledge that it is it's going to be challenging for us to sort of prescribe a certain thing for everyone because our circumstances are different. Secondly, we want to also then give information to parents because a lot of the things that we put out there are evidence-based. So actually this thing on screen time, we do have a longitudinal study, GUSTO, which actually alluded to impact on a child's IQ if there is a certain exposure and all that. And so we do want parents to know it, right? Yeah. Then they have to then make the decision, right? And then thirdly then is also about understanding that people are at different stages. So that's one thing I've realized because when this information wasn't there, people didn't know and hence they couldn't really do anything about it, right? But now I'm seeing more parents being more conscious, at least, right? To kind of maybe limit the time or putting it away. And we need to then have support for people who are at different points. I remembered in meetings as you were discussing this, right? And there are different schools of thought amongst the team, and some were saying like, no, you've got to be very strict and tell parents, no, don't do it. And and they just should do it. And no need to give phones during dinner. I actually said in the meeting, would you like to come for dinner at my place?
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
tell me how I do this exactly? Because my son's tantrums can be quite dramatic, especially when we're out. He would just lie on the floor or like just scream and shout because he's non-verbal, so he uses his voice for attention. So I'm actually very guilty for just putting it in front of him. But with, say, the information, now maybe I'm a bit more calibrated, and maybe with some of the tips, okay, try other things, try, at least we're trying. So I think I really want parents to know that it's not about judging them, but it's about putting out information that we also cannot let them know about, right? And these are data points, these are evidence. We always see sort of like the sheen of things, right? But the truth is many of us all have similar problems and we just don't talk about it. So the beauty about the current sort of platforms and social media, it also allows us to be vulnerable. There's a lot of like brave people who now kind of confess, I'm like this, keeping it real, and then they will show, and then you're like, oh my god, that's me, and like and and so you find your tribe. So there's then options also out there. So for me, it's really not creating this so that people feel judged or setting certain standards that are unachievable, but to kind of lay out information and allow for people to come together and be vulnerable together and then find solutions together.
I mean, when it's like a source of truth, right? Like when the government puts out and says that these are, firstly they use the word guidelines. It's not like,
rules,
black and white. Yeah, exactly. So the term is guidelines. And secondly, we also trust that it's a source of truth. And as parents, I think we also need to examine why are we responding the way we're responding. If we're so triggered, if it hits a spot, we need to ask why am I feeling judged? Why am I feeling angry? Because ultimately these are guidelines that are backed by data. Why are you feeling so emotional about it? There has to be a reason why. And I also feel like when parents, I have a lot of friends who are dual income, so both parents are working. I feel like they don't have the space to breathe and really like just be parents, because Monday to Friday they're stretched, and then Saturday and Sunday they feel compelled to like overcompensate. Like, oh, we need to go out. Like we need to do stuff. Like it's not just like hanging out at home and just having breathing room, spending time as a family unit. So sometimes when there's a lack of breathing room to just decide how you want to parent and just be together, I think again it also preys on our insecurities, and we feel attacked or judged when actually it really is just data, it's what you make of it. So I feel like we need to examine ourselves, our decisions as well, and figure out, why are we feeling this way? Is it because we feel unsupported? Are we too tired? We don't even have the space to think about how our kids are consuming media, for example.
It's also about picking your battles, right? So like it's a tool, right? That's, kind of what screen time is, right? How we decide to use it. Also, we have to decide, right? Do I give it every single time, or I can make my decisions around in this situation, I'll give it, or when I really need some downtime, I give it. So it's also using it to your advantage. And owning that, and not saying, oh my gosh, they said no screen time, but he's always watching.
To add on to that, so it's again about balancing. I think it's always the art of balancing that's hard. Like maybe when you try something, we are swaying one way too much, and then it's about recalibrating and trying to find a middle ground for that particular period of time. For example, if it's a peak work period, you have absolutely no choice because you don't have time, and you are really you really don't have time. So maybe during your peak periods, your peak work periods, you tend to rely a bit more on screens.
The peak watching TV time.
It could be like a graph, right?
Yeah.
But otherwise, then maybe we try to claw back time when, okay, you're a bit freer now. Maybe I'll try and be more disciplined and have lesser screen time for my kids. So it's very fluid. It's not so...
Yeah, correct.
I think people need to view it as something that's fluid and it's always a work in progress, as opposed to government say this, I must do this. If I don't do this, I'm a bad parent. It's not.
Yeah. And that state of balancing is also is just motherhood. So we're always you have to kind of recalibrate all the time, really, to kind of stay on course.
Kind of like drawing on my own sort of, it's so true that sometimes it's how you feel about it when it's just data or facts, right? And I think what I think it helps with also sometimes is just it gives you that reminder. So I have some bad habits as well, and I'm trying to also be conscious. So this kind of tips just sometimes help me rein back, because it's not just about my child's consumption, it's also about my consumption and how I get drawn into, and I hold the phone and I'm often in this state of like, okay, I'm just checking something.
And then it goes to
and then I go to another, and then I'm like totally distracted for half an hour over like this whole series of videos, and my son is out there like playing, or like I let him watch because I'm, busy doing this. And so this kind of tips and all that in general just gives you a bit of a reminder, and then you're kind of trying to watch yourself as well.
We've been talking about information overload, comparison in general, but there's a very specific version of this that happens in Singapore, right? Intensive mothering. So it's a style of parenting where moms are expected to be completely child-centered, involved, always informed, always optimizing. And before social media, maybe moms felt this pressure from their own mother, their mother-in-law, neighborhood auntie. But now, right, we feel it. We get it from our social media feeds all day, every day, right? And another study, right, was published in 2025 that looked specifically at this. For Singaporean mothers, it wasn't just influencers reinforcing this intensive mothering ideology, it was their friends. So what can we do? Is it even possible to make ourselves less competitive?
I want to kind of acknowledge the reality of life in Singapore, and also the effort people put in raising their children, because I don't want it to also come across that we are also judging them. And in a sense, they are trying their best. I think many of us come from very humble backgrounds, and we've had to work very hard for what we now have, and we really don't want to have our children to go through some of that. And we always feel that, okay, if we give them the best education, the best start, then they will have the best chance and not have to struggle so much. And I think there is that whole emotional baggage things that fuels a lot of this behavior. I also don't think it's necessarily wrong for someone who has done well to want to do and give and offer all sorts of things. And it is a small country that is highly competitive. And we're not just competing amongst ourselves, but the rest of the world. And that kind of balance of being the most productive, the most efficient, the most smart, but yet take care of our mental health, and also take care of our own feelings, and take care of our children and let them be what they want to be, sometimes feels contradictory.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very hard sometimes. And I just want to acknowledge that I think we all struggle with that. I don't know if there is like a complete solution to it. But I think it's really like what Huda said, it's about finding that balance, and it's just very tricky. I don't know if you will have like we will always know. But I think it's about just being very conscious and intentional with everything that we do, such that we don't end up just being swept away, doing something for the sake of doing it and forgetting what the ultimate purpose is at the end of the day. I think surrounding yourselves with real people, talking to people, having communities that are not just one-tracked, I think helps. So you've got to engage widely. That's why I think we always want to recommend communities coming together, people from different backgrounds coming together, so that they become a bit broader in their thinking. But I think we've got to also start reinforcing that sort of message of what really is in the best interests of our children. So my mum always says that she has different patterns for me. Like when I was growing up, she was a tiger mom with me, And I was like, I had to do all the assessments and all. But when she was dealing with my siblings, I saw that, how come they didn't have to like be like that? And then later on in our lives, she explained that, well, because you're all different. And with you, I could see that you could be pushed a little bit more, and we probably needed that kind of pushing. And so I thought that was very thoughtful and something that
that's a good example of parenting the child you have, right?
Yes.
Not the one you want.
Yes.
Were you the eldest daughter?
I was the eldest.
I knew it. This is such an eldest daughter thing.
syndrome.
Yes.
Eldest daughter syndrome.
Yeah.
I think again like what Rahayu said, we just need to be really conscious of what we're doing, the decisions that we're doing as parents. And again, it's a difficult act of
Challenge is
balancing.
because I think in Singapore we're like watching to see who blinks. Like in a way, like we want to make sure that we are not the worst. Like so tuition, for example, in the past, like you would say, oh, no need to send for tuition. But if everybody goes, and then your child's like left behind, then it becomes quite stressful for your child also.
Yeah.
Then how do you calibrate that decision? But you can't make don't go for tuition. You can't make people less
Everybody
smart.
agree. Nobody in this class
So
goes for tuition.
it's a bit tough also that, right? So that's why we have to be sensible. But it's really not easy.
Yeah,
It's
it's a tough spot to be in because, now among, my mom friends, everyone's kind of like, primary one how? Or after school, what classes do they do? Or where do they do this class? But I think everyone comes from a good place, right? Of course. So for me and my husband, I think we're in this place where we're kind of thinking about it, right? Because we don't want to overschedule our kids, put them into every, fill their time up with enrichment classes, but we also don't want them to go into primary one
Not prepared.
feeling like they don't need. I don't want them to feel stupid, because once as a child you internalize, I'm so stupid, I don't know anything. That
And
kind
doing
of
that is so
carries
much
you.
harder.
Yeah, exactly. It's easier to pay and send them to the enrichment class. And this competitiveness is a funny one because, on one hand, we all grew up in this system, right? We are competitive, maybe by nature. We know that to succeed, we have to work hard. That's sort of kind of been ingrained in us as Singaporeans, right? So now we're in kind of this rat race at work, in school, but it gets very tiring. And I think more and more mums these days are noticing that tiredness and saying, actually, is this what I really want? So a lot of people are rethinking what success means.
Yeah. So, but I think there's some also nuances to that, right? Because one, your experience may not be the same as your child's experience.
Exactly.
I mean, if your child enjoys some of those things, you shouldn't take away from some of the busyness that could enrich them and have them have fun. The other thing is also about, I don't know, I also sometimes feel that, there's this other school of thought about how you are parents and you so need to shape and nurture. So while it's child-led, if your child doesn't want to eat or just want to eat chocolate the whole day, you also don't let that happen, right? So I think it's also about calibrating and seeing what your child needs as nudges, and perhaps sometimes a bit of discipline, because sometimes children could benefit from that. I'm telling this because I'm reminding myself. I sometimes go a bit extreme.
This conversation
I know,
reminds us.
it's more like I'm also reflecting on my own. Like, because there's some days I just let my son run wild, and because he has special needs, sometimes, he gets away with a lot of things. And I'm always telling myself that just because he has special needs doesn't mean he can get away with not being disciplined or being mean to other people. So I'm also trying to catch myself to make sure that I do impose certain rules, certain values, right? So really, it's not easy parenting, but I think you've really got to be child-centric, be broad in your thinking, and be intentional, I think, in your actions.
Yeah. I think those reminders are so important. Sometimes if you're too easy or too hard on your child, sometimes I'm guilty of being a bit too hard. And my husband pulls me aside and goes, he's 6. What are you, like, huh? You regulate yourself. What are you doing? Because they're still kids and, they seem so smart and they know lots of things that I didn't know at 6, I'm quite sure. So sometimes you overestimate them and they do need that reining in.
Yes.
We've been talking about, the problem with social media and competition. What are some solutions? I don't think the answer is delete everything, right? That's just not realistic. And we love our little scrolling time, I'm sure. But, for a lot of us, social media is where we find that community, where we decompress, we stay connected. But I do think we can be smarter in how we use it, right? Like, I've been more deliberate about what I'm consuming, unfollow accounts that make me feel worse.
Maybe in my really early motherhood days, breastfeeding was a little bit triggering, so don't look at those kind of content. But later on, when I feel like, okay, maybe I need to find a bit more information about how to wean my child, for example, then I can go back into the breastfeeding algorithm. So I think these are controls that we can do and we can make. Yeah, and I think also to mix it in with like real life stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, like peers who do things differently from you, who parent differently from you. And also, I mean, as much as I really struggled with this, like with my parents' opinion on my parenting and all that, I really struggle with it because my parents too live with me, like Rahayu. But there is also merit to hearing stuff from the other generation. It gives you a variety, and then you're not so siloed in one way of thinking or one way of parenting.
So when we frame it for purposes of navigating this in managing children in the space, right? We look at a few dimensions. One is the screen time, and then the inappropriate content, and the conduct, the behaviors. I think I can borrow that framing also for, I suppose, some tips for us as adults, right? I do think we need to manage the time. I mean, this is again a reminder for myself because it's so easy to get lost in that scroll, right?
Yeah.
And I think we've got to be conscious to try to be present. I think just in terms of that screen time, I think we've just got to be at least conscious about that. And then you talked about content, right? And then there's this whole algorithm and their consciousness. I have this other friend who says that she's very conscious about what it makes her feel, right? And then if she's looking at one whole series of a certain things that's just showing her so many things, she just purposely change the algorithm by looking at something else so that she's just not looking at this whole heavy topic of, say, depression or whatever, for example. And so that it just breaks her algorithm. So maybe everybody can come with different strategies to do that. So I think all in all, it's really about just being intentional and conscious about your own consumption and knowing that it's almost like eating. So there's this whole nutrition, the way I see it, like it's digital nutrition also, right? Like if you don't have a balanced diet, you don't have good digital habits, you're going to be
obese,
unwell as well. Like, you're going to be unwell. So if you've got to get a good mix of a healthy diet, you've got to eat healthy food. You've got to, have a balance and not eat too much. So I think the way I would see it is it's like that. It's like nutrition. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Huda, you've built an entire community around bringing mothers together in real life, right? Mom circles, humans in a room or a park, right? You do your parkside mom circles. What does that give you that scrolling just can't?
I think in this, there is a bit of a lifestyle shift where people want like real life engagement. People want more of it. I mean, yes, the digital world and technology is great and well if used correctly as with any other tool. But at the same time, nothing quite replaces real life engagement. And this is an avenue where moms can do that. And sometimes there's a lot of things in real life interaction that's organic, that's spontaneous, that's very genuine and real. You can sift out vibes that you can't quite digitally. So in all these things enmeshed, and it all comes together, and it's a space where moms can just be. And obviously I'm also trying to curate it in a way where it's like a safe, active space, I like to call it. Not just a safe space, but a place where moms can be and gain something like a helpful takeaway, whether they feel that they reflected on their motherhood journey thus far, or they identify with something else that a mom has said. So it's a nice little physical space where moms can be honest and authentic and really be themselves, that you can't quite do digitally. Yeah. So I think moms have appreciated that, And we have like play setups at the side for the kids as well, so the kids are free
Entertained.
to yeah, as far as possible. We try to keep them entertained.
Yeah.
So I do think in general, like in the modern day and age, there is almost like a craving for third spaces, we call it. I mean, third space is usually an actual physical space, so mine is just like a temporary...
A picnic mat is a third space.
So it is a spot for moms specifically together. And I've also realized that there's a lot of kids stuff. Like, you know, in Singapore, you throw one stone and there's some activity for kids that you can bring your kids to over the weekend. But there isn't that much for moms specifically, like centered to moms. So that's why I thought maybe this is somewhere I can try and fill that gap. And it's been great. It's just not as easy to sustain as a one-woman show.
Yeah.
So that's probably my only struggle in making all these things like consistent.
Before we go, what is one realistic social media habit you'd like to share? What's one thing you do?
You know, it's one of those aspiring towards it, but not quite
Yeah,
there
not quite
yet,
there.
personally, you know. I think for me, it's really to just be mindful of the time sometimes I spend doing that and kind of modeling it for my son, you know,
Yeah.
because...
They do model your screen
they
time.
do, right? Because they look at you and they think that's just how it is, right? I'm still trying to kind of catch myself because in a way that's my escape. You know, after a long day, I just want to like kind of just watch videos or like just mindless, not even like something that I'm not thinking about. But that's also that precious time when my son is being with me or watching me. And so I guess for me, that personal goal or aspiration is to just be very conscious when he is around, and I'm also trying to it's that balance of finding that me time and with him. I'm just also just very it resonate with me what you said about having that child that you have. You know, our lives can be very challenging and there's 1,001 complaints we can have, but there's so many moments that that's truly ours alone, and I think we should just really cherish it. And as you were saying this, the image that comes to my mind is when my son sometimes likes to come up to my bed and you know, he'll let me kiss him and then he'll just laugh and giggle, you know. And if I could capture that moment and like frame it and all that, that's the moment I want, and that's mine. That's and that's having what I have. And so for me, yes, you know, days with him are challenging and all that, but if I hold on to that piece of happiness, that what really makes me happy, actually it makes up for a whole lot of some of the other challenges. But that just really means being present and just capturing that time with the child when they are in front of you. So I know someone told me once that, you know, the days are long but the years pass by so quickly. So don't lose those years. So I'm just always trying to remind myself about that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think for me, on a similar tangent, being present but also I think holding myself accountable. Because I mean, I'm not working. I'm a stay-at-home mom with my 2 kids, and sometimes it's the opposite end where maybe in my head I feel like, but I'm with her all day, but am I really like present with her? So sometimes if she's asking me to read a book for like the 10th time that day, sure, maybe I can use my phone for a bit, but would it really kill me to read it for the 10th time? I might feel annoyed, but if I take a break and then I do it, and I can see that it makes her immensely happy. So again, holding myself accountable and not taking time for granted. I know it's a very privileged thing to say in Singapore, where a lot of moms are working and strapped for time. But on the other hand, sometimes I also feel like maybe I don't cherish the time enough and be like you said, really, really present. So that would be one for me.
Yeah, I mean, from what the both of you shared, it's like when we, maybe put our phones down, or the things we remember are just these little moments, right? That the kids won't remember, but we will. Yeah. I think, this idea of putting limits around your own screen time is just so funny, because there are things for adults like, have you heard of Brick? There's something like you scan and then it locks your social media.
Oh my
there
God.
are even like apps that do that.
So like parent
but
control,
we're
not parental
yeah,
control.
parent control. So there are even apps, but you just like, okay, I'll go in my app now, right? Turn off the limit, and then I'll just continue. Or sometimes I get so angry with myself because I'm scrolling away, and then like half an hour, 1 hour has
gone.
passed, and I feel like I just wasted an hour, and like every hour is precious, right? I could have done so many other things in this hour. I just get so annoyed at myself. So that stops me from scrolling because I just cannot handle wasting that 1 hour when my to-do list is this long. I just feel like, why did I do this to myself, right? Not setting myself up for success tomorrow.
Doing something that tomorrow you will regret.
Exactly. I always think, what would tomorrow me want? So, to wrap up, I want to kind of sit with something we kept coming back to today, right? Social media didn't create the pressure to be a perfect mother. That pressure's always been there. What social media has done is give that pressure a screen, an algorithm, 24-hour delivery window, right? Straight to your phone. That's always in your hand. So, here's what no algorithm will ever be able to tell you. What makes your child laugh until they can't breathe, what they need when they're scared, and what kind of mother they need you to be. That's yours, and no amount of scrolling is going to get you closer to it. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, Huda and Rahayu, two women who reminded me today that the village is still out there. It just sometimes needs us to put down our phones to find it. I'll see you next time on The Motherload. Bye.